Alrighty, well, good afternoon. Welcome. Welcome to the multi-state port collaboration that supports infrastructure wins and container on barge update panel discussion. And welcome to day 2 of the St. Louis Regional Freightways Freight Week STL 2021. I'm Mary Lamy, the Executive Vice President of Multimodal Enterprises, a business enterprise of bi-state development, and I'm also responsible for the St. Louis Regional Freightway. Freight Week STL is in partnership with the Inland Marine Expo, and for more information regarding Freight Week, please visit our website at thefreightway.com. Okay, so for today's panel discussion, you will hear highlights of global connectivity of the St. Louis region's rail and inland waterway system, and you'll hear firsthand from our industry leaders who are sitting right next to me the value of the region's rail infrastructure, modal flexibility, innovation, and a barge specifically designed to transport containerized cargo, and a global perspective of the freight market. Our panelists today include Dennis Wilsmeyer, the Executive Director of America's Central Port, Neil Langdon, the Executive Vice President of Arcosa Marine Products, and Ron Tyndall, President of the Terminal Railroad Association of St. Louis. Welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to start with asking each of you to introduce yourself and your organization. Dennis, if you don't mind, we're going to start with you. Dennis has been with the port for a little over 11 years. He is also the Freightway Marketing Chairman. Dennis, can you start with providing a quick introduction of America's Central Port?
Sure. Thank you, Mary. My name again is Dennis Wilmsmeyer. I'm Executive Director of America's Central Port. We are located here in the St. Louis region on the Illinois side of the river, just on the other side of the river. My office is about 8 minutes away from the dome here where you are today. The port, America's Central Port, was founded in 1959. We are like many other public ports in the country. We are founded on the principles of economic development and taking advantage of river transportation, primarily hooking up with truck and rail transportation to the river. We have been really, I think, over our history, slowly growing up until about 2002 when we took over an old Army base, and it immediately tripled the size of our property. So we now today are about 1,200 acres in size in an industrial park where we own about 13 miles of rail track, a lot of roads, and 2 river harbors, one of which we completed in 2016, immediately north of downtown St. Louis. That is, and then in between our 2 river harbors, the Granite City Harbor and the Madison Harbor, we have Lock and Dam 27 operated by the Corps of Engineers. And for all the river people here, you know that lock is the last one on the Mississippi River as you're headed south. So we have one just north of the lock, one south of the lock on the free-flowing Mississippi River. St. Louis region, very well known for its ice-free transportation year-round, and obviously the great intermodal connectivity with the road system, having 4 interstate highways come into St. Louis, and then the rail system, too, that you're going to hear about here in a little bit from Ron Tyndall. Just a great location in terms of doing a lot of business in and around the St. Louis region.
Thank you, Dennis. We also have Neil Langdon with Arcosa Marine Products, whose office is located in Nashville, Tennessee. Neil, introduce us to Arcosa and your role with the barge industry.
Thank you, Mary. My name is Neil Langdon. I'm with Arcosa Marine Products Incorporated. We build barges in the Nashville, Tennessee area, Caruthersville, Missouri, Madisonville, Louisiana. We build tank barges, hopper barges to move grain, coal, and a variety of other products. And we also build deck barges, and we've recently built a couple container on barge specifically to move containers. And we're a public company headquartered in Dallas, Texas.
All righty, thank you, Neil. Next is Ron Tyndall with TRRA. He is also the chairman of the Freight Development Committee. Ron has been with TRA for almost a year, previously working for Trans Global Solutions, and spent over 20 years with Union Pacific Railroad. Ron, please introduce us to TRRA and your role with them.
Great. Thank you for letting me be here today, Mary. As she said, my name is Ron Tyndall. I'm the president of the Terminal Railroad Association of St. Louis. The TRA has been in this area since 1889, and depending on what day you ask, we have between 75 and 80 local customers, and we are owned by 5 Class 1 rails. And our purpose in life is to not only serve our local customers, but serve our ownership as well. So we've been a friend to St. Louis for a long time and look to continue to grow that in the future.
Thank you, Ron. Okay, Dennis, we're going to start with you. So last year, America's Central Port received a build grant from USDOT for rail and barge terminal improvements at 3 ports and in 2 states. Today's audience includes ports, shippers, and carriers. They're all interested in learning more ways to generate new business. Can you tell us about the improvements that were included with this grant and how it will enhance efficiency and opportunities for freight movement?
Sure. Thank you, Mary. So this build grant, kind of the new Tiger Grant program that's been evolving. Our operator, SCF Marine, approached us probably close to a year ago and said, hey, we'd really like to get an application put in and do some things for the river terminal facilities on both sides of the river. And I think that's what really made this play so well, was we have actually 3 locations on 2 sides of the river, bringing everybody together to really support this application and make it happen. So on the Missouri side of the river, just not too far from here, just a little bit north, Municipal River Terminal facility operated by the St. Louis Port Authority will receive a rail upgrade of their facility there. Just a lot of great rail improvements there that they're going to be able to use to offload to barge. Back on the Illinois side of the river, the terminal down in the East St. Louis area will receive also some improvements there, rail improvements, as well as some terminal building improvements. And then at America's Central Port, our 2 river terminal facilities, our 2 harbors, the Granite City Harbor and the Madison Harbor, will receive upgrades. We'll have storage that will be put in to help especially on the truck side. Right now, we're taking truck directly to barge. So we're going to build some storage there to be able to offload to storage, and then more efficiently load that to barge. And then at the Granite City Terminal facility, there's air handling upgrades for dust control purposes, a lot of rail upgrades, and then a rebuilding of one entire terminal that we have on there to basically take it. It's about a 1960s era building and conveyor system that will take that totally out and replace that completely. Total project cost is about $25 million for all of these improvements, and we really think it's been a great effort on both sides of the river in order to make this happen.
Thank you, Dennis. Neil, we've heard Arcosa is fabricating barges designed for containers. What can you tell us about the timing and status of this exciting project?
Yes, we have 1 barge that's already finished just about 3 weeks ago, and the second barge will be finishing up in the next week. And these are we're both built in Madisonville, Louisiana. We've been working as a company on container on barge efforts for several years now, probably going back 15 years. And about a year and a half ago, our CEO challenged us that we'd been talking about this for a long time, container on barge, and how this can keep growing on the river. And we're hearing about the American Marine Highway with MARAD and like Dennis's port, that they're spending a lot of money, with the infrastructure. So we see this as a very upcoming business, and we do see more container on barge movements on the river. So we talked to various stakeholders in the industry, and we went to work to design a special barge to be more efficient and be able to carry more containers. So we came up with a 200-foot long and 70-foot wide barge that takes the place of 200 by 35-foot wide barges in any hopper barge tow going up and down the river. So the tows and the boats and the deckhands and the crews wouldn't see any difference in our 200 by 70-foot barge compared to 200 by 35-foot barges. But you do gain a lot of carrying capacity because you can carry 40 more 40-foot containers in that space. So we've got 2 of them in the water now, and we're looking to be able to find somebody to put them to work. And we invite anybody that's interested to come down and check them out and take a look at them.
Excellent. And is there a special design that you put on there? Is there something on the floor of the barge?
Yeah. Yes, we have. When we designed the bottom of the barge, because typical hopper barges have a spread out load, and with the containers it's point loads. So we had to design the barge to withstand those point loads where the 4 containers sit. So we have a pedestal that's 12 inches tall, and that keeps the containers out of the water, as well as supports the containers, because we can go 4 high
Okay.
in the barge with loaded containers. So
Okay.
that'll help, protect the cargo and the barge be more useful.
So for the St. Louis region, we partnered with the Port of New Orleans and the Port of Plaquemine for container on barge and container on vessel initiatives. Are there specific regions that you're targeting, or is this just something for the entire inland waterway system?
Our barges could be that they are designed to inland river rules, and so they are inland river barges with which they can work from New Orleans to Houston to Mobile to St. Louis, on up to Pittsburgh. They can go any place on the river.
That's excellent.
Where typical hopper barges go. Barges go. So
Okay.
they can be used very, very widespread.
All right, very good. Okay, Ron, based on the tonnage data from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, the St. Louis region is ranked as the most efficient inland port system in the nation, and that's thanks in part to our geographic advantage on the Mississippi River and the cost efficiency of the St. Louis region's rail and barge connectivity along the river. How significant of a role is barge-to-rail modal flexibility for the St. Louis region's manufacturing and logistics industries, and what makes our market attractive to shippers?
So that's what makes St. Louis unique, is that we do have options. Customers really want options. In manufacturing especially, you want options on bringing in your unfinished product, and you want options on how to ship out your finished product. So that's something, by having access to rail via barge here, they can ship out. If it's not time sensitive, it can go on barge. If they can use truck, they can use rail. And when you have those options, prices tend to get a little better too. So from a shipper's standpoint and a manufacturer's standpoint, this area is extremely attractive because, again, of the options.
Very good. Okay, so let's talk about Ag Coast of America. So St. Louis was branded as Ag Coast of America based on having the highest capacity to transport agricultural and fertilizer products anywhere in the U.S. along the inland waterway system. Ron, is the ag industry a growth opportunity for the St. Louis rail and barge industry?
It absolutely is, and we've seen a very healthy third and fourth quarter last year within the ag industry on our side. I know these guys are seeing it as well, and we only anticipate that growing in the future.
Very good. All right, Dennis. You are a model for success for strategic port growth and infrastructure investment. For new startup ports, you and your staff continue to be mentors to emerging ports and leaders new to the industry. Tell us about the port's timeline for success for continued investment in infrastructure that consistently is attracting new freight generating tenants.
Boy, there's a lot in that question, Mary. So I think I just want to say again, collaboration. So if anybody out there is looking for grant applications and that sort of thing, the key buzzword right now is collaborations. Whether that's with your local community, the broader you can get, the bigger you can get. If you're near another state, bringing in another state as part of that support and help, I think is big. As far as timeline of success, so thank you for that question. So really our build grant that's starting now, these things take a while. I think that's been the biggest eye-opener, at least on from the private sector side, as we're working with SCF Marine on this, is that it doesn't happen overnight. The fact that you're announced this grant, it takes a while, and then it goes to an award stage, and we're just past that at this point, so we've been awarded. We're going through now all the startup of that. And then you've got to go through the design effort if it's not already done, and then the bidding, and then getting the things underway. So unfortunately, it's not an overnight thing. And in a lot of cases, from the time that you're putting the grant application in to the time that you actually are able to spend the money, if you're lucky enough to get the award, sometimes could be a year or a year and a half later when you're actually starting to put things in the ground in that physical asset. Other things that we have going on from that success timeline and time frame, we also have some container on barge opportunities that we're pursuing, additional over what's being done today, and with a grant that's going to buy some additional equipment for us, which is a very good thing. And then, yes, we're partnering with other ports. Just on the phone yesterday with another public port in Illinois that is needing some. They just need help. They're needing from a startup port perspective. They just need guidance. And that's one of the things I think that our staff does pretty well in terms of just answering those questions from others, trying to help others out there. And for most of you who are private operators here or on the river system and touch the river system in some way, we think that's a good thing that we're helping the public perspective, because if they can put the facilities and the investment in place, it makes it a whole lot easier for you to go in, invest, and start your operations there anywhere on the river system in the country.
Very good. And I think one of the things that your port excels at, it's a best practice that you tend to share with other emerging ports, is your ability that as you continue to be successful, you're continuing to invest in that infrastructure. And then that typically results in new tenants. So focusing on the new tenants, as I mentioned before, this audience are shippers and carriers. They're always looking for opportunities for growth. Do you have any updates or comments regarding new tenants that could result in new rail or barge service?
Right. So, yes, you hit the nail on the head. So, from a public perspective, we're grant eligible, and that's why going out and getting these federal and state grants helps a whole lot in putting that physical infrastructure on the ground. We own 13 miles of rail track. Our tenants own track. Norfolk Southern owns track on our property. So there's a lot of physical investment there today. Yes, that helps to. It's not necessarily build it and they will come. It's build it and then let's go market it, because there are a lot of manufacturing companies, as Ron said, that want those options. So when they can come in and move in and take advantage immediately of rail that they don't have to pay for up front, that very expensive rail, or the harbor itself, that helps a lot. 2019, fall of 2019, we added Boise Cascade Lumber Company to the property, leasing about 10 acres of ground and about 80,000 square feet of space. That's been one of our more recent additions, and I will tell you, you all know what happened to the lumber prices here in the last year. It was perfect timing for them. Call it lucky, call it good marketing on their side, or good decisions on their side, whichever. But they have come to us and basically said that if they had not located where they did at the port with all the options that we have for transportation, it would have been a different story for them in trying to serve the 26 storefront Home Depots that they have in the many distribution centers. So they saw great success in that, and I think that's just one of several companies there on the property that really appreciate that transportation opportunities.
All right, thank you. Okay, Neil, what type of commodities do you envision will be moved using the barges designed for containers?
Yes, we did not design this barge specific to any particular commodities. There's grain, there's TVs, all kinds of things moving containers around the world, and so with our river system, we feel like you can move anything anything you can move in 20 and 40 foot containers, you can move on the river, in or out, using a port like Dennis and rail to get, away from the river is all part of it. So, it does become a teamwork to get product to and from the end location or the start location. But, we see many different products that can move, and, with the way the container system works in the world, they can go any place in the world that containers can go. So it's a big world. This is, with St. Louis being the breadbasket of the world, from a grain perspective, it can be a breadbasket to the world for any kind of products.
Well, we agree. And I think on behalf of the shippers and carriers from the St. Louis area, we have evaluated some of the commodities that we think would be a good fit. And obviously, when we first started that process, we were looking at commodities that weren't necessarily time dependent. And so with some of the aviation and the automotive industries that we have in this area where they use quite a bit of rail, that's where we were seeing that this could obviously be a great fit. We've had conversations with some of the major box appliance companies like Best Buy, Amazon, Walmart, and looking at construction material and looking at those types of commodities. So with the work that we've done in the St. Louis region, and obviously we enjoy working with Arcosa and our different ports in the rail, at this point we're trying to identify consolidation points and letting those shippers and carriers know there's an alternate, there's another opportunity for shipping freight. In some cases, obviously we feel that there's a savings in cost with container on barge, but in some cases it may just be an option if there's some type of supply chain disruption, like what we've seen on the West Coast, what we saw with the Suez Canal, or some of the other things that have been happening at a global perspective. So, yeah, we're going to continue to work with those shippers and carriers. In the past, it hasn't been difficult, but we haven't been able to open as many doors because we felt like we were kind of selling a concept. That now that you are fabricating a barge specifically designed for containers, and obviously Dennis has got the equipment, it's making this process a little bit easier.
Yeah, and one other thing that moving product on the river is everybody knows here the decarbonization
Yep.
and green wave that's coming. Moving containers by barge on the river is definitely a more green way to help that decarbonization of moving product and transportation. So
Yep, and then
that's a big
yeah.
big important part of our company.
And then
we're doing
that
these days.
comes into play with what Dennis said with the grant application, whether it's what Dennis is doing or others with MERAD. That's part of the scoring application as far as from a sustainability and environmental. And then with what Dennis did as far as having multiple states and local agencies be part of it. So again, it's like Dennis said, it's these partnerships that everybody's working collectively together. But in the end, the motivation is trying to move freight in the most efficient manner. So, okay, Ron, let's talk about infrastructure. Are you ready?
I'm
So
ready.
we've heard how the United Soybean Board was instrumental with opening the door for over $200 million of federal funding to dredge the lower Mississippi River from 45 feet to 50 feet and make upgrades to the LaGrange Lock and Dam north of the St. Louis region. Regionally, and with your help, our region is making significant advancement with infrastructure investment. The region's highest freight priority project is the 130-year-old Merchants Bridge owned by the TRRA, and it's one of the nation's primary east-west rail corridors. And obviously the bridge is currently under construction. How will the new Merchants Rail Bridge benefit the freight transportation?
Well, the way it benefits is by eliminating waste. Currently, when you have an asset that's 130 years old, you're going to have to constantly maintain it. We would spend an average of 8 hours a day doing bridge maintenance. Once this project is complete, we do still have one rail open right now. We're taking turns as we work on both rails. But once we get this work done in early 2023, late 2022, if Mother Nature cooperates with us, those windows go from 8 hours a day to probably 5 days a week now to maybe 1 day a week, because you've got your infrastructure solid, it's in a state of good repair, it's really sturdy, good to go. So by doing that, we've just given ourselves 40 hours of capacity back every week, which is a game changer for us. It not only means we can move traffic more efficiently across our bridge, but it means we can take on additional traffic as Dennis gets internal customers and may have more car loadings. We can do that without having to add infrastructure. And as he so well stated a while ago, you've got to have the infrastructure in the ground and ready to go, so then you go out and sell it. You can't wait until you've got a need for it or you're already behind the 8 ball.
All right.
I'd like
go
to
ahead.
jump in there because I don't think people realize this Merchants Rail Bridge project, huge project for the St. Louis region, but it's just really, really cool. We build a lot of stuff, but nothing like a rail bridge. So if you get a chance, just north of, but 2 minutes from here probably, on the bank of the Mississippi on the Missouri side, they're putting the first span together. It's sitting on barges, so it's actually out in the river on barges, and they're building it there. So that'll be the first of 3 spans.
That's correct, and we anticipate putting that one up probably the second week of September this year.
Just really cool project.
Something you probably won't see again in your life.
Okay, so there's a reason, obviously, that we had Ron Tyndall part of this discussion. Obviously, this audience is primarily the barge in the inland waterway system, but we wanted to talk about the Merchants Bridge during this session because when we were putting together that list of projects, we went to the industry leaders and we asked, what's your number one infrastructure project? And obviously, when we went to the rail industry, they said the Merchants Rail Bridge. But what was really interesting when we went to your industry, the barge industry, and we said, what is your number one infrastructure project for the St. Louis region? They said the Merchants Rail Bridge. So the barge industry said their number one infrastructure project was the Merchants Rail Bridge. And that's because the rail rates influence their overall barge rates. And that is one of the keys to the St. Louis region. For all the statistics that Dennis and I are providing today, Ag Coast of America, most efficient inland port system, the key to that is that multimodal infrastructure in place, and we have that, and that's thanks in part to Ron and Dennis and working with regional leaders and allowing that project to be successful with funding. And again, it was important to us to talk about the rail component with this industry because obviously it's such a key part of your overall transportation bottom line. Okay, Ron, I'm going to keep going with you. So I want to talk about freight forwarders. So a freight forwarder is basically a travel agent for cargo to handle their transportation needs. What influences a freight forwarder when selecting freight transportation corridors, and how does the St. Louis region compete in that market?
So, as I stated earlier, what really influences them are two things, really: price and options. Once you have those, that gets them interested, gets them in the door, something they can sell. Obviously, reliability or consistency is going to be part of that as well, but that goes along with your options. So one thing that makes St. Louis unique is that we do have the inland port. We do have the rail access to 6 Class 1 railroads. We can be in either coast in a day and a half via rail. And we do have trucks as well. So we have all the options you could want, and by having that being centrally located, prices are very attractive. So that's what this area has going for it that really nowhere else in the country does.
Very good. Okay, and again, catering to this audience, because they're here about how do we get new business, how do we maintain sustainability with our business line, how do these factors influence locations for manufacturing and logistics expansion and for site selection? Because again, if we have these industries growing and expanding, it obviously helps the barge industry.
Sure. So it helps in regards that we're an attractive location because, again, we provide options. I discussed that. But manufacturing also looks at how does the area look long term? Is it sustainable? They're going to look at tax rates. They're going to look at can we find employees to employ and work for us in the area, which we do have a plentiful amount of employees in this area. So all those different things come into play at varying degrees depending on what your company does.
Okay, and you had just said as far as we're one of the best locations for this type of business line. So what is TRA's efforts to take advantage of this market opportunities?
Well, we just want to continue to provide excellent service, not just for our owners, because as we do that for them, that improves their efficiencies and the ability to run traffic through the St. Louis area instead of routing it somewhere else if we create problems for them. And we want to take care of our customers that we have internally. As they see better service, a more consistent service with attractive pricing, we try not to do price increases unless we absolutely have to. That gives them a chance to go out and market that and grow their business as well. So when they succeed, we succeed. We can't do this without our customers.
All right, very good. Thank you. Dennis, let's keep talking about container on barge service at America Central Port. Talk to us as far as what those services look like in terms of infrastructure or equipment. We've talked about how you're steadily going through a very strategic plan, but for this audience, you do have a container on barge service, but what does that look like in terms of equipment, and how have you gone about securing funding for that equipment?
Right. So again, grants are a great thing when you can make them use and when you can use them and get them to be used on your behalf. So again, our operator, SCF Marine, and without them, this wouldn't have happened. As you know, Mary, we've been talking about this for 10, 12, 15 years and trying to make container on barge happen in the St. Louis region. And we knew it would someday, and so they've stepped up to the plate and have started that process. So up until very recently here, at least about every 2 weeks, moving empties down to the Gulf Coast. That whole thing is shifted now, obviously, with some slowdowns in container movement coming into the country. There's just a major disruption right now in container flow, as you all know, all across the country. But so that's changed our model a little bit for the moment. But in terms of equipment to handle that, so we went out about a year ago now, I think it was last summer, went out for an America's Marine Highway grant through Maritime Administration, asking for about $2.5 million to support a newer crane to be able to handle loading and unloading of containers, a container tilter in order to load containers. We've got a tenant on property that handles animal feed and saw this as a great opportunity to load 20-foot containers, and then a camera system in order to try to kind of secure the property. So we were successful in that grant application. And again, I mentioned earlier, sometimes these take a year and a half to process. So that application was put in about last July. We were announced and last September, October timeframe. We've just gotten through the grant agreement and just started the purchase of those pieces of equipment. So just had approval from our board here last month. We're moving forward with the crane purchase, the container tilter purchase, and the camera purchase all at once. So we think hopefully here by the end of summer, that project will be done in place and that equipment will be operational.
All right, very good. Neil, seems like my questions for you and Dennis regarding container on barge are similar. How is your company working with ports like America Central Port or other terminals?
We've been, working with Dennis like on this panel and different things, but we've also been working to advertise the container on barge concept and the inland river opportunities in various trade magazines outside of what we typically do as far as, getting our name out to the people that build barges and operate barges and towboats. But we've tried to take that further to wave the flag for other opportunities on the river, to move containers. And so I think, letting people know that there is options, like Ron and Dennis have both said, that's one of the things we've been trying to promote, because we know that if we can get more product moving on the river, then that gives us the opportunity to build more barges in the future, and make the world a better place.
And I'll add to that. We'd love to see his barges at our harbors, absolutely. And I think the great thing, and as you mentioned earlier, Neil, we're in a strange time. Well, I don't have to tell you all. We're in a strange time right now, right? Suez Canal stuff was one thing and caught a lot of the country and the world's attention, but you all know and what's going on the West Coast right now and trying to unload these container ships that are coming over, and the whole disruption in supply, and seeing assembly plants right now waiting on pieces and parts coming from other countries, and that whole import thing, and are we going to see a reshoring of manufacturing, and all these questions out there, right? And we hope we do. We hope we attract more of that manufacturing back again. But in the meantime, it really uncovered we've got a major problem with supply chain distribution in this country. And the more opportunities we can do and put in place to move those commodities, and in this case we're talking about container on barge, it opens up a whole new world for us, because it's all about options, as Ron said. It's all about getting those options out there. And never before have barge operators or terminal operators or harbor operators or public ports or private ports had the opportunity to move tennis shoes, clothing, and lumber, and many other things that you can put in a container that today becomes a boxed commodity, just a box you're moving. But never before. I mean, we always talk about coal and grain and steel and all those commodities, but wow, how about the number of tennis shoes that a public port brought into the St. Louis region? I mean, this is something really that's just phenomenal, and a great opportunity to, again, improve that supply chain distribution in this country and really help things out.
Thank you. And Neil, I can tell you this. For the St. Louis region, Dennis and I work with the Jefferson County Port Authority and the City of St. Louis Port Authority, and obviously with the information that you're sharing with us, that will go to them. In the audience, we have the Jefferson City Port Authority, which is an emerging port. They're part of this partnership for container on barge, and we also work with the Kansas City port as well, and so we'll be sure to be sharing this information. And obviously, as a result of this conference, there's going to be some media coverage on this as well. So we're really excited about what you've done with these barges, and we really think this is going to help us take it to that next step. So thank you.
Yeah, that was one of our goals, is to, help spread the word.
Yep.
To get more stuff moving on the river.
Okay, so this is actually my second panel discussion today, and I don't think I'm allowed to have a panel discussion without talking about COVID. So Ron, you get the COVID question, okay? So why don't you give us just an update as far as how COVID has impacted rail movements through the St. Louis region or around the nation over the past year?
So like a lot of industries, when the lockdowns really hit in April or May of last year, there was about a 6-week lag in rail traffic, and it pretty much fell off probably 40 to 50%. As summer got along and we started to come out of things, August, September, we started to normalize and get back up to regular levels where we think we are right now. We actually had a nice bump there with ag, like I said, at the end of the third and fourth quarters, but it was just sort of a 2 to 3 month dip where everything stopped, because if you're not assembling autos and you're not making things in an assembly plant, you're not going to need rail traffic. So we saw a big drop. Now we're back very healthy. As far as internally, we didn't have an option. We still had to be there to provide service for our customers and for the country, because that's what we do. So we worked through it. We had a lot of health and safety precautions we put into place for our employees, and we're able to sustain things. It got pretty close at times, but been able to stay pretty close to normal staffing levels. And I think you would see that throughout the rail industry as well.
Okay, thanks. All right, you guys, we're going to do a round robin. We're going to do final comments, or have you guys, if I missed something that this audience we think would be interested in. Dennis, we're going to start with you, and if you don't mind, if you could just let us know if we've missed something or if you have any final comments.
I just want to say thank you, and it's so nice seeing people in a three-dimensional mode rather than two dimensions. This is great. I mean, we're finally getting back, right? This feels good. I think everybody, hopefully here at the IMX, is having a good time, and it's nice shaking hands again. So I think, again, my key takeaway probably, Mary, is collaboration for those really in any industry, right? And as we're getting back open again and things are happening, it's really collaboration, whether that's from a grant application perspective for your local communities, working with the county, working with the states around you and that sort of thing, or in your own industry. It's really trying to make things happen. Neil with his barge, we'd love to see that happen here. And Ron and I, Terminal Railroad and the port have been partners for many, many years as they bring cars to us and hopefully business back and forth again. So thanks. Appreciate the opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Dennis. Neil, any final comments?
Once again, I'd like to thank you, Mary, for having us here today. A couple other comments. You hear about container ships that move 10,000, 12,000, 20,000 TEUs. And our barge, I've mentioned 112 40-foot containers, but our barge can carry 224 TEUs, which are 20-foot equivalent containers. So I didn't get that out earlier.
And it's all about volume.
It's all about volume and getting that extra volume. So that's 80 more TEUs in that slot in the tow. And also some other parts of our company that I didn't mention earlier, but we're very innovative in the marine space. We also have a component companies, Nabrico and Wintec, and they're doing more advanced winches and hatches and castings, and we also do barge covers as well. And we're a part of a larger company that builds lots of other products and in different spaces. So just glad to be here today, and hopefully keep making the river industry better.
All righty, thank you. All righty, Ron, any final comments?
No, I'll echo what Dennis said. It is nice to be able to see people back in person again. Really nice. You don't know how much you missed it till you can't do it. But thanks again for having us here today. We just look forward to continuing to provide safe and efficient service for our customers here locally and for our ownership. We want to be a great corporate citizen here in the St. Louis area and continue to help things head in the right direction and drive some growth.
All right, very good. We have a couple of minutes left. Are there any questions from the audience that you would like to ask this panel discussion? Nope. Awesome. All righty. That's because you guys did such a fantastic job. Okay, you guys, thanks for your time today, sharing all of the information you did regarding infrastructure, and most importantly, your innovation and your willingness to try and launch a new option to transport freight. As many of you know, the St. Louis region, we have the geographic advantages and the infrastructure, but that doesn't always guarantee that your supply chain or logistics network will continue to be successful. So the secret to that success is what you heard today. And that's where someone needs to invest in the infrastructure like the Merchants Bridge, or with improvements that were included with the Build Grant, where you partner with 2 states and 3 ports, or where someone is taking a risk and trying new routes and new ways to transport freight and a barge designed to carry containerized cargo. So with that, we appreciate all of your innovation, your leadership, and your partnerships in helping all of us try and reduce transportation costs and allow the nation to be more competitive when it comes to moving freight. So thanks again.
Thank you.
Thank you.